Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our event today is going to be a Talent Toolbox events focused on the topic of engaging with the Upwork community. This event is going to be recorded. I'm going to drop a link to this here in the chat right now. So feel free to check this out later. You don't have to take notes during the event. You can come back to it. My name is Will Simpson. I'm an event manager for Upwork. I'm also a freelance graphic designer on the platform. And we're joined today by Mike Jornlin, who is the Upwork Community Content Program Manager. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mike.
Thank you so much for having me, Will. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. So let's take a look at what's on our agenda today.
Oops.
Back one if you could, thank you.
Oh
So
boy.
squirrely mouse, no problem. So today we're going to be looking at a little bit of the community resources side and how to engage with your fellow freelancers. You know, working in this style of business, we're all sort of, I know, or at least I know I am independently just sitting on my own in my office. So to get a little bit of a community feel and interaction with my peer group really helps me dial in what I'm doing and gives me a bit of a sanity check, to be honest. So today we're going to look into the forums where you can crowdsource information and converse on different topics with your peer groups, including people that are brand new to the platform and the expert tip-top talent. So a great place to interact with folks. Then we're going to dip into a little bit of a tech setting for if you're engaging in the forums and on the community in general. There are a few ways to set your notification preferences such that you get just one nice, clean Reader's Digest. We'll take a look at that. Then we're going to dig into the blogs. And the blog is a side of community where people are more sharing their experiences, their workflows of how they got to where they are, and their learnings and best practices. All right. And then we're going to take a look at the career close-up, is where people sort of share their journey on their career and have inspiring stories and how they got from A to B. So I always find it's useful to get this information just to realize what are other people doing, because I've only got my experience to go off of. So without further ado, Mike, why don't we go ahead and dive into this one? And we're starting off with the forums, if you could please.
Absolutely. So when a lot of people think about community, what they often think about are forums. And like many other places, that's how Upwork's community started. So if you go to the community homepage, which you get to by going to community.upwork.com, this is what you'll be greeted with. And at the top of the page, one of the drop downs is discussions. We have several different discussion boards. So I'm going to hop into one just to show you what they look like, and then I'll give you a brief overview of what each of them are. So when you go into one of these discussion boards, I chose the new to Upwork one to start, you'll see all the different threads that community members have created. And this is where they can ask for advice, ask questions. So a quick overview of what the different boards are, and then we'll go into examples of some of the posts. New to Upwork is what you might expect. If you're just getting started on Upwork, this is a great place to ask questions about how to get started, how to win that first job, how to write your first proposal. It's an excellent place to go for those sort of getting started questions. Once you're a little bit more experienced, then you might be asking your questions in the freelancers discussion board. That board is for established freelancers. They might be asking questions about contracts they're having, or maybe there's an obstacle they're facing that they haven't experienced before that just came up in the course of their work. They might go to that board to seek advice. And then agencies also have their own board. So maybe agency owners have questions that only agencies face, and they need to get help from other agency owners, other agency members. They can ask in there. Same thing for clients. Clients have a dedicated space to ask their questions. Maybe they're not sure how to write a job posting. Maybe they're not sure how to choose the best candidate. That's where they'll go to ask those questions. We
Now,
also
Mike,
have a,
sorry
oops,
to
yeah,
butt
go
in
ahead.
there. I apologize. On that list of agencies, I want to have a quick question there. Is that agency section of the forums only for people that already are part of an existing agency? Or let's say that I'm considering starting an agency, but I kind of want to feel out the waters and just ask people why, what, and how. Is that where I should be going, or do I already have to have one in
Yeah,
place?
no, that would be a great place if you're thinking about starting an agency. Maybe somebody's asked you to join their agency and you're looking to, is this the right move? That would be a great place to ask that question and get insight from people who are already running agencies or who are already part of an agency. That would be a great place to ask that question.
Cool.
So we've got the client board, and then there's a support board. So if you have something specifically related to your account, one of the first places you're going to want to start is down in the corner here. You're going to see this bubble here, get support. And if you click on that, it will open our chat bot. And you can ask questions in here, and it can provide you tons of help. And if needed, it can help connect you with a Upwork support agent. But if you're still having problems getting help, or you need a little bit additional guidance, then that support board is going to be the place to go. So those are questions specifically about your account. So not necessarily how to, excel at freelancing or how to handle a specific client situation, but if you have questions specific to your Upwork account, you can go right to that support board if you're not getting the help you need through the chat system here. So, and then the final one we have in there is coffee break. And coffee break is basically everything that's not related to work. What would you talk about in the break room if you were in an office or at the water cooler? People talk about TV shows that are going on, things that are in the news, something they did over the weekend. So there's a lot of great topics for things that are not related to work. Like I said, I really think of that as like the place to go when you want some of that like office socialization that you might not get as a remote worker. So that's one of my favorite boards to go to. So again, here we are in the new to Upwork board, and I'll show you an example of one of the resources that's in here. There's this thread called Get Profile Feedback from Experienced Freelancers that I published back in March. And what you can do is you can come into this thread and you can post saying, hey, would you please take a look at my profile? And then other freelancers will hopefully come in and provide you feedback. So you can see here, there's a few people providing different feedback. Here's a good one from Hugo here. I think one of the issues that you're seeking is to work as a content writer. So he's providing feedback specific to the profile. So that's one of the great threads that you can go to, especially if you're getting started on Upwork and you're looking for feedback on really optimizing your profile.
That's great information. Now, could you do the same sort of thing for like your proposals if you're trying to get feedback on proposals, just as a general format? Obviously, each proposal will be a bit little, separate to each job, but just a general framework could you post that sort of thing in one of these forums and get people to help dissect it?
Yes, absolutely. So we don't have a master thread for proposals, but either new to Upwork or the freelancer board would be a great place. You could share a job posting and say, this is the proposal that I'm writing for this posting. Do you think that I'm taking the right approach? Something like that. You can definitely post that in either the new to Upwork or in the freelancer board, and you will certainly find people who are willing to provide their insight and advice.
Lovely. Can you show us what it looks like when we're trying to compose a new thread? So it seems pretty intuitive to respond to an existing one, but if I wanted to start my own one, for instance, hey, can you take a look at my proposal? How would I go about doing that?
Absolutely. So at the top of each of these discussion boards, you'll see two buttons. One is subscribe, which will subscribe you to the board. That means that anytime somebody posts a new thread, based on your settings, which we'll discuss shortly, you would get a notification. And then right next to that, you have the new post button. So when you click on that, you're going to get a very simple form. You put in a title, write your question, whatever you're looking for. You can add labels if you want to. You can add tags if you want to. If you think there's something that might help stand out if people are searching in the future. And one of the key points when you're making a post, there's this option here, email me when someone replies. So if you select this, that subscribes you to your own thread so that as soon as somebody responds to your thread, you'll get an email. But if you forget to do that, I'll show you, and I can go back to this thread to do that. If you ever forget to subscribe to a thread, you can click the three dots at the top of the thread next to the first post, and there's a subscribe option. So you'd be able to click on that and subscribe to that post. I think maybe this is a good time to show kind of how to manage those subscription preferences since we're
All
talking about
right.
subscribing to things.
I was just
So when
thinking
you're
when you mentioned clicking subscribe on the new to Upwork, anytime someone posts something, you'll get an email. And for a bit of context for attendees, I've run into this issue before where I've subscribed and then every 5 minutes I was getting a ping in my email. So I reached out to Mike here. I'm like, hey, so how do we fix this?
So we'll show you a few things you can do here to get the information that you want. So first, you click on your photo up in the corner, and then you click on settings. And there's lots of different things in here, your personal information, preferences. What we're going to go to, though, is subscriptions. And in subscriptions, there's notification settings. So also, I can touch on this quickly too. It's going to show you everything you're subscribed to. So if you want to unsubscribe from something, or you're just trying to, oh, what was that thread that I saw that I really liked and I subscribed to it, but now I can't find it? You can look in your subscriptions here and see the threads that you are subscribed to. So I find this to be tremendously helpful when I'm trying to get back to something I've looked at previously. So if you click on notification settings, you have several options. Yours might look a little bit different from mine. Like I don't think you'll have this Slack option, but you'll see most of these options and you have choices of how you want to get notified. And they make it really easy to unsubscribe for things. So for instance, if you say, I don't ever want an email notification, just notify me in the platform. Then you can check this and you'll never get an email notification. You just take care of it just like that. However, if you do want those notifications, but for instance, like Will said, you don't want to get 100 emails every day, if you scroll down on this page a little bit, under email notifications, it says notify me of, and then there's a bunch of different scenarios. So new topics are articles posted in boards I subscribe to. So this would be, for instance, if you clicked that subscribe button on the new to Upwork board, this is where you control the settings of what happens whenever somebody does post a new thread in that board. I have it set to never. I don't want to be notified for every single post that goes into the board, but you have options. You can do it immediately, whereas as soon as somebody posts something, you're going to get emailed, or you can do a digest. And I think Will and I both prefer the digest option. You can get a daily digest or a weekly digest. And I'm going to pop back over to the presentation here. This is what a digest will look like. So here, Will has gotten an email that says there's been 2 updates to the expert vetted talent board. And it shows what those 2 threads are. It gives you a preview of what the thread was, and you can click to reply. If it's your post, you can accept it as a solution, or you can give kudos, or what we're now calling upvotes, to that person. So if you choose those daily digest options, and you see that's what I have for a lot of mine. If I'm subscribed to a post, just email me once a day about those updates. So you have those choices. And again, you can drill down to new replies posted to content I subscribe to. So rather than new posts, just replies. So if you subscribe to a thread, someone has asked a question and you subscribe to that, we call that a thread. If someone replies to that, then you would get notifications based on what you set here. So responses to other replies I subscribe to. So there's a few different scenarios here, and you can choose what you want to be notified about. So for instance, kudos on my posts. Again, we call kudos upvotes now. We just haven't corrected that everywhere on the platform. But I love to receive those upvotes. I think they're magical, but I don't need an email every time they happen. So I have that set to never, but I can still check in my notifications and I'll still see things like that. But I'm not going to actually be actively notified by the system every time I get an upvote.
Mike, there was a question from the audience here. They were asking what the permalink button does, and this was about 3 minutes ago, so probably near the top of what we were the screen.
Yeah, so the permalink, this link is going to get you a link to this post that will always work. So it could be that something gets moved to a different board, for instance, because sometimes somebody will post, say, in the new to Upwork board, but it's a better topic for the freelancer board or the client board, and our moderation team can move those. But if you copy that permalink, and like in Chrome, you can't see it, but if you right click on it, you'll get an option like copy link address. And that means that if you save that link, say you bookmark it, even if we move this thread to a different board, your link will still work. So that's a great way to save a link that's always going to work, even if things get moved.
Perfect. And then if you can, let's go back to the forums for a minute. I want to do a sort of use case example. So let's say I'm a graphic designer. I'm coming to the forums, and I'm curious to see if there's any topics on, graphic designer profiles or portfolios or someone that's talking about from that sort of perspective, how would I do that search in the forums?
Yeah, so right up in the right-hand corner, if you're it'll be next to your face if you're logged in there, there's a search bar. And what's really great about this, so let's say like graphic design portfolio. Let's see what we're gonna get here. But when you search, you're gonna get all sorts of different types of content in here. And this is something really magical about the search bar in the community. You don't need to know what these icons mean, but each of these icons, if it's a different icon, that means it's a different part of the community. So you will get links to not only posts that are in the discussion forums, you might get links to a specific group, you might get links to other like help center type documents that live within the community, all through that one search. So this is a post by Stan, and this is something that's a note on certification. So this is part of Upwork Academy. And they're giving information in Upwork Academy about assessments. So it will link to that too. So basically, any of the things that you can access in that header bar across the top will populate in search results. So you don't have to just search in the forums and then try to search in the blog and then try to search in the academy. You can search in one place, and we're going to provide you with the results that we think are the best for what you're looking for.
Perfect. Thank you. And you mentioned Academy. I'm going to drop a link here in the chat. Um, this is a link to the Academy, which, if you're not familiar, has a lot of fantastic educational sort of courses, asynchronous learning. So it's not live events, but just sort of education on best practices and tips and techniques to dial in proposals, overviews, portfolio, you name it, all the good stuff. Really good. Bookmark that site. And I wanted to pause here to set a little bit of context on why we're doing this deep dive for the community resources and ways to connect. I started off freelancing on Upwork, I'd say about 5 years ago, and I was not aware of these resources. I didn't take the time to go and find them. I never actually attended one of these events while I was getting ramped up. Big mistake. It took a process that should have taken me maybe a month or two to get dialed in and find regular work, find my voice, all the things that take a while to build. It should have taken me a few weeks if I was leveraging these resources. Instead, it took me months. So I figured it would be important because oftentimes when I host these events and I allude to some of these resources like the forums, like the blogs, like the academy, a lot of people are not aware of these resources. So I want to take a moment just to stress the importance of crowdsourcing the information. Your peers are going through the same exact growing pains as you are. You're new to the platform, not sure how to write proposals to get the interviews. So are a lot of other people. There's no need to reinvent the wheel if we can sort of crowdsource or at least just get a sanity check. I'm doing this and it's taking a little longer than I expected. Am I going nuts? No. A lot of people have a similar experience. So just a little bit of context on why I thought this event was important and a little plug for upcoming. We will be doing an event highlighting the groups section of community. That's probably next quarter, as well as we'll be doing some talent toolboxes focusing on some soft skills like A/B testing and things of that nature. So just providing a little bit of context here for us. Mike, why don't we shift gears over to the blog side of things, unless you had some additional points on here,
No, I will tack on to what you're saying though.
please.
Another thing I'll add is if you haven't taken a close look at the community in the last 9 months, there's many times more things there now than there were previously. So if you did a deep dive into the community a year ago, there's so much more there now. So just take a look, poke around in these menus, and you're going to find a lot of great things. And watch out for those events because there's so much stuff for us to dive into there. So
Yeah.
very great point there. I
Another
will
point I'll bring
now.
up, sorry,
Yeah,
just
no,
spurred another thought. When I first started out freelancing, and the reason I think I didn't go seeking the community and the forums and things like that is because I came from a point of view and a work background where it seemed a little bit cutthroat and it was very competitive. It was me versus you. And when I was new to the platform, misunderstood that I was competing against every other freelancer on the platform. And in reality, you're not. You're competing with yourself to find the right voice and the right client. There are masses of clients, masses of jobs. But I didn't realize at the time how supportive the community is. People are so willing to give you the answers that worked well for them. They're so willing to take a look at your workflow and say, hey, here's where I see room for improvement. I didn't know that. years ago, and now I do. I wish I'd got into it when I was first starting. So I really highly recommend you don't be afraid to be vulnerable and put yourself out there and be a part of the community. It really is way more nurturing than I ever anticipated.
And that's a great part of, for example, like the new to Upwork board. You might ask questions in there that seem simple to people who have been using Upwork for years. But the great thing about having a board dedicated to people who are newer to Upwork is only the experienced people who really want to help you are going to be in there. So it is such a safe space to ask those questions, and the people who want to help you grow are going to be there to do that. So it's really a great collaborative community. On that note, I'm going to swap us right over to the blog here. So, one of my main roles is to manage the community blog. And we have had a blog for years, but we didn't have anybody focusing on it. We weren't posting to it at regular intervals. And we've redone that this year. We're posting about 3 blog posts per week on here. And what's really great about this blog is that it's driven by the community. So if I just take a little scroll down here, you'll see we have all sorts of different posts. So this is how we work now as a brand campaign that we have going on right now. And we have a series of posts where individuals have talked about how they pivoted from a conventional work environment to freelancing. And most of these posts are written by members of the community. Shannon is one of my teammates on the community content team, but we have Sherry, we have Abigail. All of these people have shared their stories as part of this campaign. But in addition to the campaign, we have, like, this is a good post. It's talking about how when you have a meeting, you should have a purpose for that meeting. You should not be wasting people's time. So we have skills about posts about, how to approach scheduling meetings. We have things about running your business, developing a content creation tech stack. Creating content is an important part of marketing a business. So this is just something that you may need to do. And so we've got articles about that. We also, something that we do quite often is team spotlights. So if you want to learn more about who is on the Upwork team, what are they doing, is their personal experience, how did they come to Upwork, we have several posts highlighting those, and we'll have more of those coming soon. That's not quite where I want to go yet. I want to just show you an example of one of our recent posts that's been really popular. So we have 5 proposal tips from an Upwork coach. I'll show you what one of our blog posts look like. This was written by Nadia. She is one of our Upwork coaches, and she put out an article giving you 5 big things that you can do to improve your chances. So when you're writing a tip, she says, when you're writing a proposal, rather, put yourself in the client's shoes. Decide what to include in the cover letter, and she's got tips for that. And this is based on all of her experience coaching Upwork freelancers. So that's just one of the many resources that you will find in there. So the blog is really focused on things that are, well, here, we've got it right at the top. We're around career, work, and Upwork innovation. And we are open to all sorts of articles in those domains. And the reason that I'm spelling this all out is because you are all empowered to contribute. And it's really easy to do that. So if you have a blog post and you think, I am an expert on this topic, this is knowledge that has helped me, I want to share that with the community, you can come to the community blog, which you can get to by just clicking blog in the header. And there's a green button here, write an article. So it's much like it is in the discussion forums. And if you click on that, then you'll be presented with this page. You might have a couple fewer options, but this is mostly what you'll see. So you'll just put in a title, a teaser. This is just like a 1-sentence description of your blog post, and then the body of your blog post, and you can submit it for review. It's that easy. So if you know what you want to write about and you're like, oh, I had this experience, I really want to share it, you can just come in here, write it out, submit it for review. But if you'd like a little more guidance, or you would like to sort of bounce ideas off of other people before you submit a post, we have a group dedicated specifically to that. So if I go back to the main blog page, if you scroll down a little bit on this page, right below our featured article, you'll see this button that says Join Community Contributors. So if you click on that, this will take you into our group. Now, Will mentioned soon they will be doing events about groups, and I encourage you to attend because the groups have been a very magical thing, and there's so many different groups. But our group is all about writing for the community blog. And when you visit it, we have a lot more resources. So first, right on the main page, these are the main steps to submit your blog post. There's a guide that we provide that gives you more information on the types of articles we're looking for, what to include, what not to include. We tell you then, link you back to that page to write your article. And then we also provide resources down the road, such as a social media toolkit to help you promote your blog post once it's been promoted, and then, or once it's been published. And then we have this what to expect to accompany this. So the big thing is we will review your blog post within 5 business days. And if we think that it's a good idea, but it maybe needs some tweaks, we'll send it back to you with some comments. So we might say, hey, could you build out this idea a little bit more? Or would you mind, rounding out your conclusion? I'll provide guidance there. If you don't hear from us, then that probably means we're going to publish your post. So it's a no news is good news situation. But
That's
if you
fantastic,
come
Mike.
in,
Sorry, could you pop that link to this page in the chat? I have a feeling
yeah,
people are going to want a direct
absolutely.
access to this one.
Yeah, let's save some
Seems
steps
bit of
here.
interest.
There you go. So
Thank
that
you.
will get you right to the group. So that's the main, like when you enter the group, these are kind of the way to get to all the resources for what to do if you're looking to publish a post. And obviously we have the big things here as well. And our submission guide, just to give you a quick overview of what it looks like, we talk about the main things we're looking for, which is, we want you to provide supporting information. That could be an anecdote, that could be, a link to research. We also want you to provide actionable takeaways. So we want people to come and read your article and go, okay, this is how I can apply it to my business. So that is super helpful. And then a unique perspective. This is why we're tapping into the community hive mind. Every one of us has had a vastly different experience. We've all gone through vastly different things to get where we are today. And that information is helpful to other people. You might think, sometimes I think about myself that, oh, the path I've taken was maybe not the most direct route I could take. I majored in many different things in college. I ended up majoring in French. I have a master's degree in linguistics, but here I am doing video editing and managing a blog. But I've learned that sometimes people need to hear stories like that. They need to know that you don't always go directly to where you're supposed to be. Sometimes you have to find your way there. So whatever your unique story is, I'm certain there are people that want to read that. So I won't bore you with all the details here, but we have more details on this page. And I'll share this link directly too for the submission guide if you want to get more information about the sort of stuff we're looking for.
You brought up some really good points there, Mike. Thank you for sharing that. One of the things that also came to mind is I didn't really notice a lot of this until I was sort of knee deep in my experience of ramping up and finding community and all that. But when you're working on your own, where I went from working in an office environment, corporate job, to freelancing on my own in my own little bubble, I didn't realize how valuable it was just to hear other people's story purely from a motivational standpoint. And this really hit home for me during points where maybe people can relate, maybe they can't, but I go through periods where I just was getting a little bit down on myself. Just like there was a lull in business. I'd put out a lot of proposals. People weren't really biting on them at the time, and it happened. It goes in waves. And hearing that the most successful people that Upwork has ever seen have the same experience. And here's what they do to work through those times. Like, hey, is there a lull in the business that you can't seem to troubleshoot right now? Okay, no problem. Why don't we use that time to upskill so that by the time the business swings back up, like maybe it's the holiday season, for instance, we can use the lull in business where we don't have billable hours to make ourselves more valuable when the billable hours come back. But I get a lot of messages from events afterwards where we have expert talks where we interview people and their struggles to get where they are. And a lot of people are so thankful just for the reality check because, we live in a world of social media where we post only the successes and not the horrible grind to get to those successes. Whereas I think the community specifically and events like this, as well as the forums and blogs, are a great place where people are actually human and say, yes, I did not do well at first. I came into this with $5 in my pocket and hadn't eaten in a day, and now I'm making $1 million. So I think it's really helpful and humanizing for that aspect. And I think it's important for us as independent professionals to keep up our spirits. In a corporate world, you have HR for that, perhaps, or you have teammates to help lift you up. But when you're on your own as an independent professional, part of your routine or regimen, as it were, is making sure that you are good, you are motivated, you are inspired, whatever that may look like for you.
That yes, I love that so much. And it's funny because the next thing I wanted to talk about within the group is that the group itself has a discussion board. So you can pose questions to other contributors. And something that I do is I post a topic in there for discussion every week. And just yesterday, I was posting about inspirational quotes. And one of mine is, "Your focus determines your reality." It's a Star Wars quote from the character Qui-Gon Jinn. And I think it ties in so well to what you're saying, Will, because I have a tendency to fixate on the bad. And while you can't pay your rent with upskilling, it is something that you can do to build yourself for the future. It's about helping to return your focus. Don't focus on the struggles necessarily. If you've done everything you can, you've got to get over that lull in business. Where else can I turn my energy? And the community will remind you of all the different ways you can do that, all the things you can do. And that's part of that camaraderie that we build up in the community. So yes, we have all sorts of topics within the group as well. We have like a topic brainstorming thread. There's all sorts of different things. A lot of these I have started, but other people in the group have posted comments. You'll also see opportunities within the contributor group to help other people with their projects. So Haley works on the Academy team. She's building learning paths and she's often looking for input to help her build those paths. And one of the main places she goes for that input is the contributors group. So even if you don't think you might want to write a blog post, if you just want your voice to be heard and you want to have an impact on the things that Upwork is building and doing, join the contributors group and watch out for posts by people like Haley, who just want you to give a couple sentences of input, share your thoughts on the matter, and that helps her determine where she's going with the Academy.
There was a question from the audience I wanted to bring up here, Mike. What is the process of getting involved with Upwork as a moderator or guru in the community? Do you have to work for Upwork directly, or can you be a community member and still be a moderator?
So moderators are all team members. So that is a job that would be posted on occasion. I'm not sure that we're looking for anyone right now specifically as moderators, but we are rolling out within the community new badges. And with that, there's kind of like some new fun titles and things that go with that. We used to have a role within the community called Guru, and that was just somebody who was really active in the community. But we're in the process of completely overhauling kind of that program. So moderators are a role, but there are lots of ways to gain recognition and sort of I can't think of the right word, notoriety within the community. So if you go to, I went a little fast here, let me do this again. Yours will look a little different than mine, but if you click on your photo, go to profile, first you'll see a bunch of stuff that you won't have, but it'll look like this. And down here, there is a badges section. So we have a whole new set of badges that you can earn by doing different things. So if you start a certain number of topics, you get a discussion departure badge. So I've started more than 100 topics at this point. If you're replying to topics, if you're helping others, you can get badges for that. There's lots of stuff in here. Authoring for the blog will get you a badge as well. So that's something to keep in mind. So this is something that we're still building out to help draw attention to those people who are providing the greatest level of assistance and camaraderie to their fellow community members. We're constantly building on those opportunities.
And these are brand new, these badges, right? If I'm not mistaken,
These
like
are
maybe
brand new.
not even a month old, perhaps.
No, in the last couple of weeks, I think. Yeah, these are
Perfect.
brand new. So you may not have even noticed them yet. There is, I believe, an announcement about them. If you go to, I think in the announcements section of updates, we have a post that has more information about them. Yep, it's the most recent one. So it's just from October 4th that we introduced badges. So if you want to check out community announcements, I'll drop that link in here too, just so you can get there easily. But you can learn all about badges from Bethany, who's another member of our community team.
I love those badges, and I think it's a great way to sort of organically, um, maybe not notorize, clout, maybe the word I'm looking for, where or street cred, if you will. If you're posting a lot of information or feedback that people are finding useful, you'll be organically gaining those badges like a Pokemon master going for it, and
Absolutely.
that seems very productive. So you can then sort of identify who are the voices of wisdom. That are piping up in the channels and responding, as opposed to maybe someone that may or may not have the experience to back it up, but you never know.
And that's absolutely, I mean, and that's part of why we took those old titles like gurus and things, and we're reevaluating because we really want to make sure that it is a truthful indicator of the value that someone's bringing. So they're fun looking. There's so many different ways to gain badges, and I know there's lots more stuff coming down the pipeline. So we've got a lot of great things going on in that regard.
I love it. Folks, if you have any questions, comments, feel free to put them in the Q&A or in the general chat here. I wanted to address a few of the questions we had here, unless, Mike, is this a good pausing point for us?
Yeah, we can pause here. That's great.
Perfect. So there was a question earlier on. I had mentioned agencies. One of the discussion forum boards was about agencies. Mike, do you want to just put that up on the screen for us? Um, the question is, what is an agency? That's a great question. And we'll be actually Q1 of next year, 2023, probably in January, maybe February. I will actually be doing quite a few events around agencies. What are they? Do I want to start one? How the heck do I start one? And even more, how do I run one? These are all big questions that I also have. I don't know the answers, but I've got some really good speakers lined up for us. An agency, in short, is so let's say Mike and we're both freelancers on the platform, which is also true. And I do graphic design, he does translating. And we think, you know what? We do really well doing graphic design marketing for the French audience. So Mike and I want to team up. But I don't know how to speak French, and I don't know what Mike's graphic design capabilities are. So what it may be advantageous for us to start ABC Agency, where we can go ahead and bid on jobs for French businesses looking for marketing and be like, hey, ABC Agency is full service for graphic design, translation, whatever you need. So as an agency, Mike and I could both bid. There's a variety of ways you can set it up, but we could both bid as the agency, ABC Agency, or if he wants to just do French translations on the side, he can just do that direct. I can do graphic design on the side. But an agency is a way that I would say, generally speaking, people approach the larger, more complex jobs. Not always specifically tied to enterprise, but think about like a complex project where we need a complete branding overhaul. Okay, that's probably not one person's job. That's website, that's coding, that's marketing materials, that's PR, that's SEO. There's so many different flavors of what goes on in a complete brand rehaul and campaign that it's usually more than one person getting involved. That would likely be what an agency is doing. So keep an eye out in Q1 for more information about agencies, because I think that's about the extent of my knowledge on them that I just ran through.
Yeah, so I've been on quite a journey since I joined the Upwork team. I started in customer support, but when I left customer support, I became the agency program coordinator. I was kind of the subject matter expert on agencies, and they are a little bit complex, but we're overhauling all of that too, and we'll have that in future events. But it's a type of account that you can create once you've created a freelancer account and that's been approved. You can establish an agency and add other freelancers to it, and then you're able to submit proposals as that agency. And like Will said, then you can say, hey, we can do, you need a short film, we can do the whole thing. We have a writer, we have a cinematographer, we have an editor, we have all of these components, we can do the whole thing for you. Another way that they might be used is if somebody needs to hire a lot of something. For instance, if somebody needs to hire 15 customer support agents, they might hire a customer support agency that has a bunch of support agents under them. and it saves the client the work. They don't have to find all these individual people. They can have communications with the agency manager and then build on it from there. So it offers a lot of flexibility and a lot of collaboration between freelancers. Oh, well, I think you're muted.
Sorry, thanks for that. I always forget that you were the head honcho in the agency department for a minute there. Thanks for sharing your wisdom on that. There's another question here. How do we get into the enterprise talent program? So the enterprise is more on the client side, enterprise clients. There's not really enterprise talent. So I'm going to answer this in a sort of circuitous manner. The enterprise clients are typically, not always, larger entities that have more complex requirements. Think the titans of industries, Coke, Johnson & Johnson, you name it. These types of folks where there's masses of different departments. Oftentimes they will leverage some independent professional help through Upwork. And so the way to get on those radar, those people's radar, is to make sure just make sure you have great JSS, great feedback, make sure your skill tags are dialed in. You really need to be well polished. If you want to become expert vetted, that never hurts. But basically what's happening for a lot of these enterprise clients, they will typically get some sort of assistance from internal Upwork members as sort of a recruiter. So the internal member will go ahead and post a job posting based on what the client wants, and then go and find people in the pool of talent, us here, and invite them to go ahead and apply. The way they shortlist you is, do you look good on paper? Do your skill tags match the skill tags that the client needs? Do you have a history of working on larger or more complex projects, or they're all little projects? So there is not really a way to become specifically an enterprise talent member, but you can stack the deck to be more attractive to those sorts of scenarios. One of the events I recommend you check out are the in-demand skills, which is, let me drop this link again. This is the events page where you find a recording of this one after it's done, as well as all of our previous ones. But check out the one on the in-demand skills. I want to say it was maybe second quarter of this year. And we highlighted 2 or 3 different market segments. I think it was customer service, IT, and marketing. I could be wrong, but something like that, where we were talking about the most in-demand skills. So it's basically the clients, the big clients that are looking for people, 90% of them have this skill tag. Photoshop is just a random one, or some sort of programming language, whatever the case may be. But that would be a good place to find out, what are people looking for? Where should I be upskilling? It's better to upskill in directions that will provide lucrative opportunities. So a little bit of advice there.
Yeah, and I think, like you mentioned, the expert vetted talent program, I'll drop a link to the help article about that. That's an invite only program, but if you grow your reputation on Upwork and you're in one of those categories, you may be invited to that program, and that can help get you in front of enterprise clients. But I think it's important, like you said, to note that that's not necessary. They are looking at the pool of talent on the platform. So it's really just about being the best you can be and building your reputation. And you touched on, I'm not sure if I will find it quickly here, but this is another bonus of the blog, is we try to, for a lot of these events, we try to do a blog article following the event, so that if you miss something and you just want to quickly catch up on it, you can go through the blog. So a lot of these, like here's one about an expert talk, 5 tips to improve your client onboarding process. There are things in here, and one of those was the top skills. So if you, for instance, subscribe to the blog, which will have a subscribe button at the top, you can be notified 2 of those things coming through. So if you miss an event, you might be able to get the information from the blog.
Excellent. Great call out for an agency looking to expand. Just a little sneak peek for those that are in this meeting. This is something that I've been working on. I think Mike and I have actually been brainstorming on this together, to find a way to plug or find a destination and a workflow for agencies and talent to job seek or hire without being just a complete mess. So look for that in hopefully Q1, where I'm going to do my sort of theme is going to be predominantly leaning towards agencies and how to get involved, how to hire, all those good sorts of things. So keep an eye out for those. I just posted in the chat just now, based on Tony's question regarding scam and safety. This is absolutely a hot topic, and I know it's not super visible, but there are an insane amount of systems and technologies and workflows on the Upwork backend to prevent and combat this. Unfortunately, it's a constantly moving target. The more evolved we get, the more evolved scammers get. So it is a moving target. But for every one you see, we've blocked 300. Um, so check out. There's a link I put there where I spoke with Caitlin McNerney. I think halfway through this year, about staying safe on Upwork. I'm doing an updated version of this presentation with her or someone on her team in Q1. It's as I said, it's an important topic where we'll talk about the usual scams to look out for, keywords that throw a red flag, and just some basic ways to stay safe. The unfortunate fact of it is the market segment of talent that is targeted most by scammers are the new entities. These are the people that are least familiar with the workflows and the terms of service and things that maybe someone who's been doing this for a decade may immediately lock onto. So it's good to be aware of this and leverage the resources we have.
Yeah, I think it's really important to note that, like you said, it's a moving target, but we're always working really hard on combating those scams, so that you don't ever see them. I think one of the biggest things, if there's anybody that's brand new to Upwork on the call, one of the biggest things to remember to keep yourself safe, and this doesn't, it doesn't prevent you from seeing the scam, but just remember that all of that communication with the client needs to happen through Upwork, through the means on the platform until you have a contract in place. I think that one of the biggest red flags you'll see is someone saying, send me a message on X, Y, or Z app to connect with my hiring person. Just leave them on red. You don't even need to respond. So again, we're always working we don't want you to ever see those people. But if you just remember that I shouldn't be talking with them outside of Upwork until I have a contract, that can help keep you safe in a lot of situations. And we have a little bit of a logical transition here to talk about career close-up. And what career close-up is it's a new, I'm going to post the link in here because this is a brand new thing that we've just done a soft launch on. So it's not even available via the navigation yet. So save that link I just posted in the chat. What this is it's a database of people's both insight into what they do on a day-to-day basis in their roles, and also how they got to where they are. So I immediately thought of this when we were talking about all the things we're preventing on the back end. It's a little bit different. It's not related specifically to scams, but we have one great interview with Sean, who's the director of the Cyber Center at Upwork, where he talks about all of the things that we come in, that we combat, and all of the processes that we go through to prevent bad actors on the platform. So that might be one that would interest you. But this is a place where you can talk about how you got where you are and tell about what your role is, because this tool is it serves a lot of purposes. I'm trying to focus my thoughts. One thing we mentioned earlier was upskill, and this can be a great tool if you're considering expanding your skill set, or again, I work in a completely different industry than my training. This can give you insight into many different fields and what it takes to do that job. So we've got authors. Sandre is the CEO of a startup. So if you want to know what is that startup life like, I interviewed him and he walked me through his day-to-day. What does it look like running a startup, and how is that different from a huge corporation? We've got other things. For one that really interested me is Kristen's story as a video editor. And she, speaking of agencies, started as an individual video editor, and now she runs a video production agency on Upwork. So if you want to learn about how she got to where she is and what her day-to-day is like now, you can check out Kristen's story. And I'll click through to that one to show you an example of what these look like, because these come in all different forms. So Kristen's, we've got a video as well as a transcript of that video. So if you don't want to watch a video, but you'd rather read, you can read the transcript. So we have like I said, videos and written text. And the key, of course, to this, much like the blog, is that you can share your story. So, like everything else, you can subscribe to this board, but if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see how to submit your story and submit your story. So, if you want to share specifically about the role you do, like if I wanted to say, if I wanted to do mine about a program manager, I'm in here somewhere, but I could talk about how I got to my job and what I do in the day-to-day basis. So if you want to share that knowledge to other people who might be interested in your field, I encourage you to submit a story. If you click this button, it will take you to a Google form. I promise you it's legit. And then you come in here, you just provide information about your industry, how long you've been doing it, your title, just your experience there. And then you add your story. And again, it can be audio. Maybe you just want to, record yourself talking about it. We'll turn that into a podcast type content. Text, video, if you want to share a presentation, however you want to tell your story, we want to hear it and we want to help you share it. So you can upload that there, and then we'll get that up on the site. And it's our colleague Mindy who runs that. So if you submit something here, you'll likely hear from Mindy about sharing your story. Yes.
Good request to drop that link. Yeah,
Yep.
you got it.
There you go. That's the link to that form specifically.
Awesome. There's also been quite a few questions, and this is brought up in every event, so right on the money. How to write good proposals and things like that. These are the archetypal things that the majority of our events, the Upwork Academy is focused on, because these are the key ingredients to be getting those jobs. I'm going to link to an event here, one that we did with one of our coaching staffs, coaching professionals, Hilda, earlier this year, and it's basically we're doing a deep dive on profiles where people in the audience submitted their proposal or their profiles and proposals and such, and sort of we went through them in live time. So there's a few in that series. Look for the talent toolbox in the events, in the historical events, and you'll find quite a lot of information on writing proposals, writing your profile, things of that nature. So there's a lot of resources out there. But also just know, when you are new to the platform and you haven't got a bunch of 5-star ratings yet, it takes time to get the interviews. It takes time to find how to write your proposal in a way that people actually respond to. It took me ages. It took me a lot of A/B testing, a lot of struggling and thinking, am I just useless at this? No, you're not useless at this. You're doing great. Everyone has this same struggle when they're starting. And the people that succeed are the people that stuck with it and attended events like this and used the resources like the ones we're sharing. So don't lose hope. If you're struggling with that, it is very common. It's very normal, and it's part of the growing pains. So don't let it dissuade you.
Yes, 100%. I totally agree with that. And there's lots of stuff out there in the community. Those events are really great. I love the ones where we watch the coach kind of go through real proposals, real profiles, and they really tell you what works, what doesn't work, and why. And it's so helpful. And again, this is something that's going to get lots of its own focus, but also I encourage you, if specifically too, if you're maybe you don't want to watch a video, or the event video you find is too long and you're just looking for something to do a little bit quicker, check out the learning paths, because you will find stuff in the learning paths from Upwork Academy. I was hesitant to even click because we're not gonna get into Upwork Academy in this event, but there are lots of learning paths in here. And it includes paths about some, like for instance, working on Upwork 101, submitting proposals. So this is a lot of really helpful information as well. Of course, this one is longer than that event you're going to watch, but it just gives you an idea that there's many different ways to get the information within the community. But I think those events with coaches are some of the most helpful because they have those real world specific examples.
Yeah, and we'll be doing more of those throughout the year next year, where I invite the coaches to join. We did some earlier this year. I given them a break in this quarter, but keep an eye out for later this quarter. There's going to be some talent toolbox events where I mentioned earlier we're focusing on some of the soft skills, the in-betweens, A/B testing on your proposals, really identifying and pulling out what the client's pain points and key factors are in their job posts, things like that, where these are a little bit more I would say intermediate level skills, but if you start practicing these from day one, you'll see results. And this is based upon what I've heard all the professionals tell me and my own experiences. So this is not just hey, this worked for Will. This worked for the people that I've interviewed that are far more successful than myself. Now we're coming up to time here. I wanted to thank everyone so much for joining us today. I know it's an important topic that I think doesn't get enough light shed on it. And Mike, thank you so much for walking us through and answering all these questions for us. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you next time, everyone. Bye bye.